Hi, welcome to Simple or Not Kitchen. My name is Melissa, and here in Simple or Not Kitchen, we take some of those online cooking videos and we put them to the test and let you know if they're simple to follow or not. And today we are making easy homemade butter, and we're going to use two different methods to make it. With inflation, now's a good time to rediscover the art of making butter. It only uses one ingredient, that's heavy whipping cream, and I'm going to show you two methods for making it. One, the old-fashioned way that you probably did as a child, where you put the whipping cream in a jar and you shake it until you make butter. And then we're also going to use the method of using our stand mixer to make it, which is much easier. And we're going to start with the stand mixer. We're going to pour 2 cups of heavy whipping cream right inside our stand mixer. And then with our whisk attachment attached, we're going to gently start the machine. We're going to start it slow and gradually increase it to 10. We don't want to do this right away because this is messy and it will splatter. So we're going to just gradually turn up the speed of our stand mixer until we reach 10. We are going to put the splatter guard on as well, and you might want to have a towel standing by, depending on how much you're using, and we're using 2 cups, but if you have much more than that in there, it's probably going to splatter quite a bit. And then we're going to stand back as the mixer does its thing. This process does take a while. First, our whipped cream is going to turn to whipped cream, and then gradually it's going to turn to butter, and the butter is going to separate from the buttermilk. And when you're looking for ways to save money, especially with inflation, a ½ gallon of heavy whipping cream is actually a money-saving item. From 1/2 gallon of whipping cream, you can get butter, you can get buttermilk, of course, as well as make whipped cream and have enough cream left over for your coffees and lattes. And after a few minutes, our heavy whipping cream has already started to turn to whipped cream. If we were making a banana cream pie or a chocolate cream pie, this would be about the texture that we would want. But we want butter, so we are going to keep the mixer going. And with our stand mixer going in the background, we're going to get going on our other way of making butter. We're going to take about 1 cup of heavy whipping cream and pour it into a jar. Any container with a tight-fitting lid works for this method. We're reusing a jar that some pasta sauce came in, just because the jars are easy to hold in your hand and easy to shake. We're going to put the lid on there nice and tight, and we're just going to shake it until the butter separates from the buttermilk. This can take a while. It can take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how vigorously you're shaking, and it is a nice little workout for your arm and your wrist. And then we're going to turn our attention back to our stand mixer. We can see that the whisk is still going, and it is turning our cream into a thicker consistency. We're going to let it keep going. It still has a ways to go. This is about 5 to 7 minutes into the process. And as the mixer continues to whisk the cream, it's going to eventually turn a little yellowish in color, and you'll see the cream start to break down a little bit. It's starting to look a little bit like butter, but we want to keep it going until that buttermilk separates from the fat. And a few minutes later, you'll see that start to happen, but we want to keep it going. We need to remove as much of that buttermilk from the butter as possible. And a few minutes later, you'll see that start to happen. Much of the butter is actually going to gather inside the whisk, and then that liquid is the buttermilk. And we don't want to throw away that buttermilk. We're going to go ahead and pour it into a separate container, and later I'll be using that to make some pancakes and maybe some ranch dressing as well. At this point, we are almost finished with our butter, but we do need to clean it. We want to get as much of the buttermilk off our butter as we can, so it's back into the stand mixer. We're going to pour some cold water over it and just whisk it. And this will help to keep our butter nice and fresh. We want to remove as much of the buttermilk as possible. After a few minutes doing this, we're going to go ahead and empty out that water. See how it's nice and cloudy? We want to keep rinsing our butter until it's nice, until that water turns out nice and clear. And so we're just going to go through the process about 2 or 3 more times, putting our butter back in our stand mixer, pouring some cold water on it, and just whisking it. And eventually the water is going to come out a little more clear, and that's when our butter is done. And after 2 or 3 times rinsing our butter, we want to remove the rest of the water from it as much as possible. We're just going to go ahead and press as much out as we can, and then we're going to move it to a strainer and just let it sit for a little bit and press some of that water out. And we're going to return to our jar method of making butter. We've been shaking this for a good long time, and the butter has started to separate from the buttermilk. So just like before, we are going to go ahead and strain away that buttermilk. We're going to save it, and we're going to rinse our butter. We're going to pour a little bit of ice cold water over our butter, put the cover back on, and shake it for a few more minutes. This takes about 2 or 3 times, and then we're left with butter. And we're going to rinse away all that water and strain it next to the butter that we made earlier in the stand mixer. Then we are going to store this in an airtight container and refrigerate it. And it's that simple. 2 easy ways of making homemade butter. Thank you for watching Simple or Not Kitchen. For more recipes, articles, and video, go online to PennellCentral.com.